Welcome to episode 1 of Space Without Limits. If you're here, you've probably been a space enthusiast all your life, and maybe your life was changed by watching Star Wars, Star Trek, or even watching rocket launches on TV. Or maybe you've been fortunate enough to work in the space industry. Or maybe you work in defense intelligence with the government. But the idea of traveling through the galaxies fascinates you. And for most of human history, experiencing that has been impossible. But what if it wasn't impossible anymore? What if space travel, space life, or space jobs is a reality, not just for the elite, but for everyone? What if you could be there or experience the new space economy in your lifetime? Welcome to Space Without Limits, where we explore the reality of your place in space. My name is Mike Koenigs. I have never been more intrigued or more excited about what our future, my future, your future, our kids' futures can and will be with what's happening in space right now. Now, in this episode, it's my honor to introduce you to Michael Bloxton. He's the CEO and founder of Nebula Space Enterprise and the show Nebula. Now, we're here to share a vision of your place in space. So welcome, my friend. Good to be here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so why don't you talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering in this episode, and then I'm going to get down and ask you a couple why questions.
Absolutely. So in this episode, we actually have an amazing human being, one of my favorite human beings. The term salt of the earth comes to mind. This person had grown up in a tribe in Africa and then had come to the United States as a U.S. citizen and became one of the top 1% of the top 1% in our military. So to put that in perspective, we have about 1.5 million military personnel. So he was the top 1% of 1% in the rank that he retired with. And that's who we'll have on to talk about freedom in space. Most people don't understand how critical space is to our freedom. And as far as people go, I think this person is a spokesman for freedom and space.
Yeah, he's brilliant. We had the good fortune of actually doing that interview before we recorded this. So I'm excited because, first of all, he brings up some ideas and some thoughts about why it's so important to participate in space, even though a lot of people say, well, we got to take care of what we have on Earth first. And he creates a very compelling reason why it's important to think about space and be the first to be doing major stuff there.
Agreed.
Any other thoughts before we can move on to the next topic?
On Quast?
Well, no, after him.
So space, most people don't realize that space is critical to where we are. Part of the reason we're starting this show is so that people understand their place in space. Doesn't matter if you're a plumber working in residential properties right now, an electrician working in office buildings, a fashion designer. We want to be able to show you through this show where your place in space is, how you can directly get involved with the future that we're all dreaming about.
All right. And just to put a little bit of this in context, why don't you describe what your why is and why you started Nebula in the first place? Why'd you get involved in space?
The true moment that was the catalyst and catalyzer to me being who I am now and doing what I'm doing now was holding my son when he was 1 month old. I had a visceral experience sitting in our family room, looking out the backyard, and I realized he didn't have the future he deserved. Why didn't he have the future he deserves? That's why I started Nebula. That's why I've gone down these rabbit holes and made the connections and did all the learning that I possibly could so that I could go from someone who was just an enthusiast, someone who had no idea. I'll tell you, I had a very literal thought after I thought about space. What am I going to think of? Who am I to come up with a great idea that Bezos, Branson, and Musk may not have already thought of? Yet here we are, and I want to share that experience so that you can shortcut your place into space. Every once in a while, something revolutionary comes along that changes the world. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. The following century saw 5 million telephone poles constructed to connect the United States population. In 1983, the internet and cellular communications were born. The following several decades saw data centers and 500,000 cell towers built again to connect the United States population. In 2006 and 2007, humanity was introduced to cloud computing and mobile communications through Steve Jobs' iPhone. In 2013 and 2019, SpaceX created reusable rockets, dramatically lowering the cost to access space, and launched Starlink. Their Starlink constellation is expected to have 30,000 satellite units, with the big difference of being able to connect not the United States, but the entire globe. Now imagine limitless energy, limitless computing, limitless quantum encrypted communications. Combine those and you'll see humanity's next evolution. Imagine sustainable computation without touching Earth's precious water and energy resources, without gigatons of carbon emissions. Imagine global connectivity, all 8 billion people connected through true wireless connectivity. No more telephone poles, cell phone towers, or fiber optic cables. Imagine real-time, highly secured and encrypted intelligence within seconds to anywhere in the world. Now, combine that with multi-trillion-dollar industries. Energy, $1 trillion. Telecom, $1 trillion. Cloud computing will pass $1 trillion in 2027. And the space economy in 2030. Accelerate all those with banking, cryptocurrency, defense, cybersecurity, and again, you'll see humanity's next evolution. But how will we get there? Nebula is bringing cloud computing to space. Why now? Simply put, for the future of humanity. We have to double the amount of power plants ever built by humanity by 2050 in order to meet current rising energy demand. IT and data centers will use 20% of all energy produced by 2040. U.S. power plants have used 47 trillion gallons of water in 2020 alone, and an estimated 85% of that from freshwater resources. This will exhaust non-renewable resources, including our potable water and our limited fuels, and contaminate our air and water in the process. Data centers contributed to 0.5% of total carbon emissions in the United States in 2018. That is 3 gigatons of CO2. We simply can't meet energy demand, preserve our air, water, and fuels, and connect the globe by building more terrestrial infrastructure. Nebula can, Nebula will. Nebula is beginning to launch server sats, providing support to government blockchain and cybersecurity use cases, and in 2027, we will start launching our data centers, providing cloud and internet computing capabilities from space to the rest of Earth. Nebula's solution eliminates using 20% of Earth's energy resources because we are leveraging 100% solar and nuclear technology in space. Nebula isn't using water for cooling. We're using the limitless cooling in the vacuum of space. This removes gigatons of carbon emissions from Earth. Nebula becomes the core infrastructure of the internet. Nebula enables tech for developing countries. Nebula enables cloud players to service new markets. Nebula connects 8 billion people across Earth and space to the internet. We're bringing cloud computing to Earth, Moon, Mars, and beyond. Here's a specific use case as to why the DoD wants our technology. Let's say you're an operator in North Africa, and you need to know what's on the other side of that hill. There's a satellite overhead that has an image that could have the answer you need. That satellite requisites a ground station in Australia. That ground station fibers it up to a data center in Germany. The data is then pre-processed. The pre-processed data is bounced over to a MILSAT data center in the US, which has the AI, ML, or algorithm needed to get the answer. The answer is then bounced back into the network, bounced up to a satellite, and back to the operator. This entire process takes 10 to 90 minutes. With Nebula, the operator makes the request. The satellite has already been sending the data over to a Nebula server set. It has already been pre-processed, and Nebula server set already has the AI, ML, and algorithm to run. Once that request was made, the algorithm was run against the data, and the answer was found, bounced back to the recon sat, down to the operator. This entire process, 30 to 60 seconds, 20 to 90 times faster than state-of-the-art today. If you look at the phone in your pocket, and you think about the amount of pictures you take, you don't take less pictures because the sensor, the camera sensor file size is bigger and bigger with every generation. Our sensors in space are no different. Humanity has an insane ability to be able to generate data and crazy amounts of data, as you see, 175 zettabytes by 2025. Our current process of terrestrial infrastructure cannot solve our data revolution. We need Nebula's data solution. We are already doing this. We've already attracted partners like the Space Force, NASA, and Space Systems Command, and AFRL. Nebula's commercial partners include Microsoft, IBM, Starburst. We're in conversation with Thales, AWS, opening up a unit in Australia. We can do this because of the amazing insight of our advisors. Here are just the few that have realized and lived the experience of not being able to get intelligence when they need it, where they need it. You've been hearing from me, Michael Bloxton, CEO and founder of Nebula. I've got 15 years of telecom experience, have done over 200 transactions. I understand how networks work. I understand how to value units on a network. I was formerly a VP at a Goldman Sachs-backed company and a director at a subsidiary of Blackstone. Stephanie, our chief financial officer, has been a director and treasurer of Blue Origin, head of strategy and finance at Boeing, where she managed 31 funds across 5 continents. Peter has built the largest data centers for IBM in Europe, as well as headed up the global cloud services for a Fortune 50 Ingram Micro company. Trent Martin has built processing in space. The $2 billion alpha magnetic spectrometer project he ran for NASA had 600 processors, where he started the thinking around how do you solve this problem to scale. And we've leveraged that to create the solution you see here today. There is unlimited, unprecedented opportunity for growth, but we must do this first. Nebula will ensure freedom to information and freedom of communication in space for years to come. Join us, connect the world, unify humanity, your place in space.
Okay. Well, I think just again to put this in context for everyone watching, what you've done is you've managed to put together the people, the technology, a business model, the vision, and it's been accepted and validated by people in just about every major industry that it matters in, meaning the computing industry, defense, government, and a lot of people who've been involved in the government and frankly are, now that they're out or out of space industries and technology industries, hamstrung by bureaucracy and traditional thinking, they feel like this is it's like a fresh blackboard to sit down with, a fresh iPad, if we will. But well, let's do this. Let's head over to General Quast and experience this interview. And just for the record, this is a condensed version. We wanted to grab the sound bites, and we have the full version on the website at NebulaMedia.Space. Anything else that we should say before we begin the interview?
No, let's jump right into it. I think let's let Lieutenant General Stephen Quast's words speak for themselves.
All right, let's check them out.
I need to make sure your viewers understand that I did something that most generals do not do, most retired generals do not do, and that is I took no money from anybody that I worked with or knew in this industrial military complex out there. And the reason I did that is because it allows me to look and see agnostically, without any bias, what is going on in the space industrial base and give advice and be helpful. Space is going to be more important to free will and freedom and every human being's ability to make decisions consistent with their own idea of what happiness means, more so than the open oceans allowed for the freedom of commerce and the highways to new marketplaces, and more important than transportation, where the Romans built roads and what that did for the economic blessing and the freedom of people to move around, do what they wanted to do, and explore. So space is all of that on steroids times 10. Freedom can be accentuated, and the free will of human beings everywhere on the planet can be accentuated if space is designed properly for the use of human beings. But the opposite can be true. Where if somebody who does not believe in our definition of freedom is ruling the commerce of space, they can impose on you their definition of freedom. What space is going to be able to do is allow us to see truth and then make decisions. And you are providing now for humanity the ability to be able to see and understand what is going on around them real time without the filters of narrative in ways that are incredibly powerful. And that has never existed in humanity, and it still doesn't exist. But without what Nebula is doing, it will not exist. The people that get there first set the rules. And if our Constitution that believes that every human being is created equal and that rule of law is the abiding contract that keeps us safe and healthy and prosperous and pursuing the free choice to pursue happiness in our own way, then we need to be there first. Do we invest in this capability to first see and understand what's going on by being able to compute in space, and then everything else becomes easy? Or do we give that up to somebody else, and then we can't trust what we're seeing from them? This is the real choice for humanity and for America especially, and for those venture capitalists that want to be a part of a multi-trillion-dollar effort. Imagine the first company that is capable of connecting with all of humanity in ways that serve them so powerfully, everybody wants to be on board. The first trillionaire will be an American company if we win this race to space.
All right. First of all, he is so articulate, such an interesting guy, and he loves you. He loves this vision. What do you feel some of the most important takeaways and sound bites were from this interview?
One thing that he said that resonates deeply with me, which I never really connected until he said it: nations fail because they lack vision. And I think I read somewhere else that innovation is the thing that continues to push civilization to grow. Innovation is driven by vision. If you don't have a vision to go beyond what current status quo is, you're not going to innovate to get beyond it. And I think Kwast nailed that one on the head. Nations fail because they lack vision.
I agree with that. And recently, Ray Dalio, and I'll put this in the show notes, he came out with a new video, and it really talks about the decline of empires. And he talks about the variables that determine what constitutes the decline of an empire. So he began and talked about the Dutch Empire, which made way to the Brits, which then made way to the US. And his prediction is we're in a decline right now. China is on an incline based upon these variables, which he feels are constants. And that isn't fear-mongering so much as you just got to look at the data, and you're absolutely right. It just comes down to innovation, and this is an opportunity for the United States specifically, or if you wanted to speak broader, the West and the free world, one that is not governed by a dictatorship and communist policies, to really win and provide opportunity and freedom for everyone. So when he was talking about that, I couldn't help but think, holy cow, this really resonates with Ray Dalio's vision as well. And anyone who doesn't know who Ray is, he's a very, very famous investor who's made billions. He's lost billions, but he's been able to live through multiple cycles.
Powerful. China has written in their constitution their right to control space. And Quast had elaborated on why that's so critical to us. If we want the next 1,000 years to be based on their morality, their privacy law, their version of freedom, then we can let them win. And if we don't, then we're going to be speaking Mandarin or not having the freedom that we have here in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. So I think at the end of the day, what Nebula represents is, first of all, an easy business model to get your head around, access to technology, ways to develop. I think of it in some ways as an app store for space. That's what Nebula represents, the opportunity for people to develop applications that can actually operate on servers in space, much like what Amazon did with AWS, opening up its servers, its technology to developers. And when you look at the economy they created, AWS is bigger than Amazon itself. It was quite a while ago, just like for Apple, the App Store is a massive, massive platform. So this is a platform, and it's a new way of thinking, and it's something that extends way beyond what we're doing just here on Earth as well. Any other comments about that?
If we look at world events with what's happening in Ukraine and their access to information, and Starlink and Elon sending extra terminals there so they can actually have access to information. And then I love the little trick of making sure it works on a car battery with a little lighter. But then tying it back to what Kwast said, the access to information is not a guarantee. Access to transparent information is not a guarantee. And I don't think the other 4 billion people are going to be getting their internet access. They're not getting access to communication through telephone poles. They're not going to get access to the internet through fiber optic cables in the middle of nowhere. We don't even do that in the US for the rural. We just saw the FCC award SpaceX $1 billion contract to connect that last mile. It was never economically made sense for Verizon or AT&T to build a cell tower or run a fiber optic cable. It doesn't make economic sense to do the same for the developing world. So we have the opportunity not only to establish the foundation of how humanity accesses information, how humanity accesses the internet on Earth, on the moon, on Mars, and beyond.
Very good. I couldn't agree more. And I think that really brings this episode to a close, because in a way, this is all about freedom in space, and why freedom in space is so important. And I know in the second episode, we're bringing on another really great guest. We'll have another theme. We'll have another future look at your place in space. Any other final words before we wrap this one up?
When I think about freedom, you think about freedom to choose your place in space. I mean, we can provide that by building this infrastructure, and we want people involved.
All right. Very good. So if you're inspired by what you saw today, and if you want more, subscribe to our channel and stay tuned to NebulaMedia.Space. And there are buttons on there. One is an info button to learn more and actually subscribe to some information. Another button for opportunities, finding out what's available for you based on your skill set, your capabilities, and what you want to do if you want to take advantage of this new space economy. And also there is an investor button if you want to get involved in one of the Nebula companies. Now, we have up-to-date space news, rare interviews with world-renowned space experts like you experienced today with General Quast, and also space tech updates to share in coming episodes. So get ready. There's a place for you in this space. There's a place for you in this universe. There's a place for you in Nebula. My name is Mike Koenigs. Thanks so much for watching, and Michael Bloxton and I will be back in the next episode.